back with On the Road of Recovery with Cale from Athens, Ohio. How are you doing today?
Doing well, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. Can you start off by describing your childhood?
So my childhood, my father's an alcoholic and my mother is addicted to prescription drugs. So I guess I've always had the gene. My parents got divorced when I was 6 in the 70s. So that was kind of, not common at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So instantly I kind of felt not part of and less than. Before my parents got divorced, my dad was a major alcoholic, violent alcoholic. And he used to beat me and my brother, well, my mom essentially, and then I would get in the middle and try to defend her. And then he was violent with us. And first time I ever remember getting drunk was he used to feed us beer, like go get me a beer, boy, and I'd crack it, give it to him. Actually, it was a pull tab at that point, and I'd take a sip. But one day, he and his brother thought it would be funny that he'd get me and my cousin drunk, and I guess I was 6, and we were living in Whitehall, which is out east side of Columbus, and his brother lived in Springfield, so it was about an hour drive between the two, and I puked all the way back to Columbus in his car. So, and that kind of set the stage for my drinking, because I really did drink until I puked, passed out, or ran out. I mean, that's really how I drank. So, alcohol has always been in my life. I always thought that was normal. So, like I said, my mom wanted to strike out on her own, and my mom and I were not getting along, and she found that freshman year, she found these Motley Crue albums and things, and she took me to see a shrink, and she took me to see multiple shrinks, and every one of them were like, he's just rebelling, like it's okay. And then finally she found one that said that I had a chemical imbalance in my brain. What I now know in hindsight is that my mom was projecting her things onto me, and that's a real legit thing. So So I ended up in a psych ward with a bunch of adults, and what I didn't know, and now after working, I've been sober since February 7th of 2011, and I've done some pretty deep dive work, more will be revealed and all those AA cliches, and I realized that I lost my virginity to a 24-year-old woman in the psych hospital who was not all there, and that's rape. Like,
yes.
You're not able to consent at 14, and I didn't know that because I'm like, from that generation, like, oh, hot for teacher, and that's cool, dude, But I drank at that for a lot of years. I mean, I didn't know how to process it, so I drank and used at it. Eventually, I ended up being emancipated and joining the U.S. Navy. My alcoholism definitely took off, and we got back from Desert Storm, and I got out.
Did you ever experience any consequences when you were in the Navy because of your alcoholism?
Yes, actually I did. We got back from Desert Storm. I went to go see the Doors movie in the movie theater, and some guy had some acid, and we dropped acid, and I got back to the ship, and they gave us a urinalysis, and LSD is like one of the only drugs that can tell within 24 hours, and so by the time I was processed out, I was in for 3 years, 11 months, and 2 days, and got busted. And by the time it got processed out, I was in for 4 years and 8 months or something. So I've drank at that for a lot of years. I got an other than honorable discharge and lost all my benefits, and was planning on going to Ohio State on the GI Bill, which I ended up going to Ohio State anyway, but I carried a lot of guilt over that. I couldn't call myself a veteran for a while. After Desert Storm, I met a woman when I was bartending. We ended up dating for 2 years, and I ended up living together, and we ended up getting married, and I was with her for 28 years. I was in a 28-year relationship. In 2008, I got laid off, and I was in grad school, and I couldn't stop drinking. I could not. I mean, it was even more reason to drink. Like, I was drowning my sorrows. I got laid off. I had a baby that was 18 months old. We had a house in Hilliard, and my 401k got wiped out. because go figure, I was in really aggressive stocks, gone. I mean, like within 3 months, it was completely wiped out. I lost half the value of my house. And then my grandfather died, and I held it together to do his eulogy. And it was probably one of the best pieces of writing I've ever put together, but I lost it after that. I just spiraled out. And I hit my bottom pretty hard. And I almost lost my wife and kid at that point. I just remember at one point I was eating Klonopin so much that, and smoking marijuana, I wasn't even drinking at that point because I just couldn't get, it was not fast enough. So my daughter was like, I don't know, she was 2.5, 3. She was old enough to walk and talk. And her mom sent her down the hallway to get me out of bed because I was just laying in bed for dinner. I went to go pull up my sweatpants and I fell on my face because I was just so out of it. And my daughter freaked out, ran down the hallway. And so my wife was working in commercial real estate at the time, and one of my buddies hired her that was a Marine when I was in the Navy. And one of the guys that she worked with was a retired gunnery sergeant out of the Marine Corps, just veteran, Desert Storm, and she showed up to the house with him and told me that she was moving in with her parents and that I needed to get myself together. And I accused the gunny of taking my wife and, cussing them out. And I'm in this Klonopin haze, just so out of it. And the gunny could have easily killed me. I mean, literally, he could have just broke my neck. Mm-hmm. And I tried to throw a punch at him, and it was just an ugly, ugly mess. And they were in my daughter's room. She was about 2.5 or 3 at this point. And they were in my daughter's room trying to get her things together. And I don't know what's going on. And the gunny was shorter than me, but he was twice my width. And he wouldn't let me, he just kept getting in front of me. And he wouldn't let me, he wouldn't let me hug my daughter. And I put my fist through my daughter's window. And the look of horror on that little girl's face. So my dad, he used to drink and beat us. And I swore I would never do that to my daughter. I would never put her in that. And in that moment, I realized that I'm no better than my dad. So I don't know how long they left, and I don't know how long it was because I was just so out of it. And the CEO of the group home I was in, my first sponsor, evidently my wife had called her, and he shows up. And I remember when they were left, I just couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel physically, I couldn't feel emotionally. And I had this buck knife, so I started cutting myself just because I couldn't feel anything. I just wanted to feel something. And so Joe, my first sponsor, he shows up and he starts cleaning me up, and I still have scars on my arm to this day. Which, I'm not one, I've never been one to do self-harm or I don't even know what that was about. But that was definitely my bottom. Mm-hmm. And they were gone for a while. And then they came back, and, I put some time together, and then I ended up relapsing on the marijuana maintenance program. But, now I'm looking at this in hindsight. We were in a very codependent relationship, and she was very controlling, and that's why it worked for 28 years, right? She got what she needed, I got what I needed, and my divorce it'll be 1 year next week. September 11th, it'll be 1 year that it was official. And now I'm in this place where I left Columbus, I'm living here. I just finished this master's program, and I'm trying to do this recovery work. But I'm, for the first time in my life, like ever, I think, because I lived with my parents, and I lived in the group home, and then I lived with my mom for like a very short period of time when I came out of the Navy, and ended up moving in with this woman, like who I was with for 28. I've never lived alone, ever, ever. Never had to manage my finances. I mean, and I don't know why it was like this scary thing, but it's not hard. And I feel like I have independence now. I feel like the other thing is I'm really addicted to relationships.
Okay.
Like I didn't realize, I've done a lot of EMDR work. EMDR is electromagnetic desensitization response, I think is what it all stands for. It's a light bar essentially, and it allowed me to get to the crux of my PTSD, both in the military, and then I didn't realize I had PTSD from like being like my father's abuse and being in the group home and like losing my virginity to a crazy lady, and like all these things that I didn't really realize, all layered. Like we talk in 12 steps about the layers of the onion, and you keep peeling them back. And the longer I stay in recovery, the more I see that, okay, all this is interconnected. Like, and when it took me, 10 years now to like get to the crux of it. So, I consider myself, my sobriety date, February 7th of 2011, simply because when I was smoking weed, I was not sober. Mm-hmm. And for me, I work a total abstinence program because I cannot have any kind of mind-altering substance in me, because it's not real. For me, it's not. Now, I also, as a executive director of a recovery community organization, I believe in inclusiveness. I believe that all paths of recovery, and that includes MAT and harm reduction, and like everybody's got their path. Mm-hmm. This is my path, and I am not judging anybody. And again, with the recovery community organization, like if you're trying to get sober, if you're trying to live a better life, you are welcome. My only caveat is do not be under the influence of anything while you're on site or interacting with the other people here, because that's triggering the people that are not.
Right. And
there's a place for everybody. I truly believe that. Because again, it comes back to that whole, like, I got to give it away to keep it. If you have the disease of addiction, and I believe that's a disease as well, should not be a death sentence. Right. It should not. And at 52, I maybe have 30 years left on this planet on the good side. And I'm a Gen Xer. All my savings have been wiped out. I'm divorced. I'm starting over from scratch. So if I'm going to die at work, which is probably going to happen, I want to do something to make a difference. Mm-hmm. And I can't go change the world, but I can certainly leave a indelible imprint on the recovery world. And it's not because it's a Cale, it's just because I happen to have this lived experience.
Mm-hmm. So if you could share a little bit about how you rebuilt trust in early recovery and how you reconnected with family and how you, like what you did to rebuild your life.
So first of all, I didn't drink and use again. That was the most important thing. And I was consistent. Like if I said I was going to do something, I did it. And I showed up, and I didn't give excuses, and I took ownership of the things that I did wrong. I worked the steps essentially. But a lot of it is just being consistent. And with my daughter, that was the biggest key, was always being there for her events, like not making excuses for not being there. Even now that I left my wife and daughter in 2019, I moved out. And I call her every day. Every day at 8 o'clock, we call and talk on the phone every day. Now, she doesn't always answer because now she's 14 going on 24 with eye rolls and attitude, but I call every day. The other thing I've been doing to build the relationship with my daughter and people in general is I'm working the 12 steps through the Shamballa meditation, the Buddhist lens, which has been amazing because I didn't know everything. I still, even in long-term sobriety, was like everything's black and white. And what the Buddhist path has taught me, that there's a third way, that, to live in the gray, right? And the steps, the 12 steps and the Buddhist path, they kind of work together. And it's been amazing. It's improved my sobriety to the point where, not everybody's out to like stab me in the back, or not everybody. You know, the thing that really taught me, that I really learned from the Buddhist meditation, is that every person can be a teacher if I'm willing to listen, if I'm willing to learn the lesson. And that is a fundamental shift in the way I view life. Like, because either it was a threat or a non-threat. You know, my ex-wife used to say that I was paranoid, going to restaurants and making sure I knew where everybody was and sitting with my back to the door and making sure I knew where the exits were. To me, I was just situationally aware. But I mean, I still do that to a certain degree, but I also don't see a threat around every corner. And I also know if somebody's being an ass or a jerk, you know, that person's probably having a bad day. And maybe I should be a little bit more compassionate instead of like automatically going into, well, I got to defend myself and what's around me. And it has made my sobriety way different. It has made it, it's like I knew the path through the 12 steps, but working at this through this Shamballa meditation, it's like somebody turning a light switch and there's so much more. So that's been amazing. And I use the visualization of a river a lot. And I felt like for a lot of years I was trying to row upstream. And in the last year or so, since I've been here, since I've just kind of pulled the oars in and just I'm going with the current, because it's just easier, and it's so exhausting to try to swim upstream. Another thing that I learned, and this, I don't know why this even came to mind, but because of all those experiences with the group home and you know, the abuse and the trauma, there was no way 4 or 5 years ago you would have ever told me or convinced me that I in some way was privileged. But through this MPA program and working in this and like really looking at everything, there's no way I could be sitting here with 2 master's degrees, having overcome this stuff, getting my discharge upgraded, if I was not a white male. I mean, that is absolutely the truth. And I am very blessed to, and I don't even know if that's even the right word, but I've come to the conclusion that, yeah, I'm probably privileged. And having that realization also empowers me to the point where know that my voice is a little different. It's not good or bad, but it might be louder in some sectors. And that's a great responsibility that I now understand and have taken on. And that's why I still want to get into higher level policy voice of recovery at some point. But right now, I just want to make sure we can get, I have something that's been handed to me by virtue of like my lived experience and my education, and I need to spread that. I need to let, you know, and it's nothing like special. I'm not like super genius. Actually, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I just know how to hustle, and I know now where the path lies, and now it's my responsibility to show other people how to do it, right? You know, train the trainer kind of model. And right now, that's all I'm focused on. Addiction doesn't care what color you are, what gender, who you love, how much money you make. It does not care. It's going to kill us all equally.
Yes.
And there are things that we can do to prevent us from dying. And I think that at this point in my recovery and in my professional career, that I've got some pretty strong skill sets that like I can show other people how to do it. And that's why I believe in the peer model, right? Let me show you what I did. Let's talk about getting your kids back, your license back, or, you know, now it's my responsibility to give back. And again, I don't want this to any way, shape, or form come off as an arrogant, like Cale's RCO, because I don't want it to be Cale's RCO. I don't want, you know, honestly, to sit in the back office and do grants and like not interact with people sounds horrible to me. I want to be in like in the authorizing environment and talking with people and meeting with people, because that's what I do best. And I'm not, I mean, I said from the beginning, I don't hide my recovery. I live my recovery out loud.
Right.
Because maybe someday I'll say something to somebody and they're like, dude, I get it. Like, I might be the only big book somebody ever sees. And that's okay. Like, I don't know if I exactly have found my calling or my purpose, but it feels real close. And I've lost a lot in the last year. Like, this has got to be it, right?
So if you could share with somebody a message of hope for somebody that's struggling out there, just something that has helped you along the way.
Like, our secrets keep us sick. Like, our secrets keep us sick. If you are struggling, there are resources out there. There are people that offer the hand of AA or 12 steps or whatever that looks like, whatever your path is. But don't hold that inside. Our secrets keep us sick. If transparency, the best disinfectant is sunlight. You gotta let it go. Like, talk about it. I did that for a lot of years. I hid and I didn't want to talk about it, and I tried to keep up image, and that'll kill us. And that's the truth. And don't stop until the miracle happens. If you don't like a meeting or a path, find another path. There's multiple paths of recovery. Not all of them work for everybody. Find your niche, but you don't ever have to live the way you are right now. If you don't like the way you live, if you don't like the feeling that you have at this moment, you don't have to do that anymore if you don't want to.
Thank you so much. Is there anything that we missed that you would like to share?
I think we were all over the board. I am so sorry.
It was beautiful. So thank you again for coming out to Athens County today. Your story is definitely going to help somebody find hope and find that you are a true example that there is a way out of active addiction into long-term recovery. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Every